means that the number one pick in the 2021 NBA draft goes to the Detroit Pistons.
Who's got the number one pick in this year's draft? Who's got the number one pick in this year's draft?
Basketball!
Select Isaiah Stewart.
The Detroit Pistons select Killian Hayes.
Saddiq, that was absolutely sensational.
I don't know what went into that process. I met the criteria to be selected, but I wasn't.
From long range. Oh! Yes!
Detroit basketball! Pistons fans, welcome back to another edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast, part of the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mike Milano, and joining me, as always, are Aaron Johnson and Jasper Apollonia. Fellas, how are we doing this fine evening?
Doing good. You know, I know we got a couple topics to get into. Everyone wants to talk about Kevin Knox, so I'm not going to waste anyone's time talking about myself. Like, I'm ready to get right into how Kevin Knox is going to revitalize his career with the Detroit Pistons, become a future All-Star, folks.
Yeah, I'm just happy we got the three, I'm going to say three friends, not amigos. That's cultural appropriation. And I'm not trying to, and the last thing Pistons Twitter need is another podcaster getting canceled for racism. So, plus, I'm pretty sure that counts as plagiarism too.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Again, we're still in these dog days, but believe it or not, guys, we actually saw a little bit of Pistons basketball. Well, maybe not Pistons basketball, but we did see some Pistons players get a little run in, including, future superstar Kevin Knox. So we what else do we have to do but get right into it?
That's a great segue, and we are going to get right into it. The Rico Hines runs. Lots of footage, and Aaron, thank you for dropping all that in the chat so that I could watch all of it back to back to back. There were several Pistons players included in that footage: Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Kevin Knox, Marvin Bagley, Killian Hayes, Corey Joseph, and there were some other stars around the league as well. Of course, Stephen Curry from the defending champion Golden State Warriors, Trae Young, Rookie of the Year Scottie Barnes, Michael Porter Jr. There was some interesting footage in there. I did go through and look at those highlights and several other angles. Fellas, do we care about, is the content so dry, a barren wasteland of dust, that this matters to us at all? Did you take anything out of it?
The people have been waiting for this since the pictures came out a couple weeks ago of Cade and Steph next to each other. I think there was someone else I think there was that other big picture with like all of the Pistons roster in the gym in the Rico Hines gym. And so people have been like counting down, waking up every morning and going to the Rico Hines YouTube page to see if that video was out yet. So people have like legitimately been craving this type of content. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't watch it, because within a couple of hours I had watched it. But the energy around this whole ordeal and how hyped up people got for this was utterly insane. Yet at the same time, I also respect it, because if you care enough about a team that has been so bad for so long, if you care about them playing in pickup basketball games 3 months before the season or whatever this was, shout out to you. Like, you are a real fan. So I respect the people's desire to watch this. I know that the first video came out and it was the Raptors running Detroit's 5-man group of Corey Joseph, Jaden Ivey, Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Stewart, and Hamidou Diallo. And it was just like 8 to 10 minutes of the Raptors guys absolutely murdering that group. So everyone was like waiting for it to come out. And then that was the first video that dropped. And I'm sure everyone's initial reaction was like, get me away from the nearest ledge because it's sad boy hours. But then we got the other videos that came out, and like, yeah, I absolutely watched it, but I am an utter shock at the excitement and the essential like countdown to it coming out. Every day people were tweeting about it. Oh, where's this footage at? When's it coming out? Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? When do we think it's coming out? They were literally mapping out. Well, we saw the pictures of Draymond there a week before the Pistons pictures came out, so it's got to be 3 days away. Like, people were so amped up about this. I didn't find it to be anything that crazy. I didn't think it showed the Pistons in the greatest light either, but props to
let it be known that was my question.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's how I think about it, Mike. I mean, I'm not one of those people that was counting down. Look, I like NBA basketball. I don't watch pickup basketball, but I definitely did watch this Rico Hines run. And it's not just because it's all we had to talk about on this week's podcast. It's also because I wanted to see a few things from certain players. And look, you can only read so much into this footage. After all, the Raptors beat the Pistons. So it's not that indicative of what's going to happen in the regular season, since we know that Toronto can't beat Dwayne Casey.
That's exactly right.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, you can only read into it so much. We have to live in reality. And in reality, the Pistons own that franchise. So let's just say what it is. That's just the truth. Sorry, Toronto fans. But there was definitely some things that I took away from this footage that I really liked. I think this was kind of one of those situations where you can't read too much into anything, but you do have to look at individual players and see some of the things that they do well, some of the things that they struggle at, and evaluate those going into the regular season. For example, I love seeing Cade play defense. I know that the Rico Hines run, they're going to show the makes. So Steph definitely had some great threes, some crazy step backs against Cade. But what I was more impressed by than even Steph, because at this point, I mean, we know what Steph Curry is. He's there's not even the words to describe him at this point. Cade played, I thought, amazingly well in terms of staying in front of him, being physical, using his length, using his size, doing something that I think he's really singularly great at in terms of not biting on pump fakes and using his length when he contests shots in a way that doesn't put him in a position to foul shooters. I really was impressed by Cade's defense. Obviously, there's other stuff too, like Kevin Knox getting an alley-oop. That was great. He even hit a three. Jalen Duren hooping in a hoodie. I don't know why. That was just really funny to me. That was some real pickup basketball.
Mad respect there.
I loved it. That was so funny to me. I was like, oh man, this is how you know it's really a pickup run. There's always one dude in a hoodie at the pickup run, and you're like, how are you doing this? Like, I would die of heat stroke if I did something like that. But I don't know. A lot of this felt kind of like how the regular season's going to go. Like, the Pistons are going to play with a lot of energy. They're going to play hard. They're going to be fun, but they're going to lose a lot. And nothing from this footage made me feel differently. I'm certainly not changing my outlook on the season over under win totals. That's for sure.
Wait, so like, you're telling me you watched all that, the 30 minutes or whatever of footage that got put out there, and you didn't see what Kevin Knox did, and you don't think that this team is bound for the playoffs now? I mean, look, on the flip side of what I talked about in terms of respecting everybody who was dying for this footage, I think you almost lose more credit for actually like watching it and then like, yeah, Kevin Knox is the real deal, guys. This guy's it. Like, it's pickup basketball, and I'm seeing legitimate think piece level tweets about the breakout season upcoming for Kevin Knox. And while I respect the fandom, no, they are. I respect the fandom. I do. Ride for your guys. Like, it's admirable, but at the same time, ride for the right guys. We have 4 years of Kevin Knox's NBA history telling us like he is what he is. And I'm sorry, but look, the footage was nice, but it's pickup basketball. These guys aren't really playing elite level defense. It's I couldn't believe the like and like the thing is, it was like Kevin Knox, Marvin Bagley, and like another back end roster guy there. Like the damn near entire roster was there, and we're gonna focus on what Kevin Knox was doing. Like more people I think tweeted about Kevin Knox than they did Cade. It was just insanity.
I don't know, Aaron. Look, I will say this though. Okay, yes, we're gonna mock the Kevin Knox stuff because I'm sorry. Like, okay, maybe Kevin Knox does take a small leap this year, but like he's Kevin Knox. He is what he is. And to be frank, like you're not in the NBA if you can't get buckets. So him getting some good hoops should not be a shock to anybody. What are the things that looking at this footage that you do buy into? Because for me, I look at Cade's defense and I say there's something there. Like, yes, obviously this is pickup basketball, but like the intensity that he's playing with, the technique that he's using, that to me is something that is translatable into regular season action. Like in terms of Jaden Ivey being more explosive, there's obviously no lingering issues from that injury, right? We're in agreement on that.
Yeah, no, he looked good there.
But then there's other things too, where you saw Ivy knocking down a couple threes, including a nice step back. And I think we've already touched on this on the podcast, but I'll keep bringing it up. That feels like a shot he's going to have to hit regularly in order to hit his full potential as an NBA player. It's not going to be enough for him to just be this incredibly explosive athlete. He's going to have to shoot. And that step back fadeaway three, absolutely, I think is a shot that he's going to have to perfect in order to become a threat all around as an offensive player. So I guess for me, I'm wondering, Aaron, what are the things that you're buying into? Do you buy into that Jaden Ivey step back three? Are you buying into Isaiah Stewart handling the ball a little bit on the perimeter and knocking down multiple 3-pointers? He did not seem hesitant to let it fly. Or is it maybe like a half and half? Do you buy into Stewart shooting, but maybe not so much handling the ball? Marvin Bagley, I actually saw him talking a lot defensively. That's something that we have absolutely mentioned is an issue for him on that end of the ball. So, yeah, what are the things that you look at and are saying like, okay, I think that there's something to take from this versus the things that where you're just like, hey, this is pickup basketball. Like, you can't buy into a Kevin Knox alley-oop as being like breakout campaign coming.
Yeah, so I don't know if I necessarily take a specific, any sort of skill that was like, I don't think my opinion changes on the hope of Isaiah Stewart being able to shoot the ball or handle the ball off of this type of footage. Because, like, I don't know, to me, I just remember watching for 4 or 5 consecutive off seasons, Andre Drummond in the gym shooting 3-pointers and like talking myself into that becoming a translatable skill for him when the regular season comes. I think the thing that I take away more so from this is that this is a team that's committed to getting better, and they're committed to doing that together, building chemistry. We've seen this group spend a lot of the offseason together now, and that is the thing to me that is most exciting, because I look at a team like Toronto, who has championship pedigree in recent years, who has a lot of those guys. You see Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Scottie Barnes. Like, you're seeing these top players, these all-star level players, these young guys that are bound to have long careers in the NBA, long successful careers in the NBA. They're coming out, they're bringing their team with them, and they're getting better together all offseason. Then that builds chemistry, camaraderie, and things like that, which is more something that I feel like you can grow from these types of pickup games, rather than more so the individual skill you might be working on in the offseason. Like, to me, that's what I gain out of this is I like that the Pistons are spending a lot of time together. this is a group that sent a large contingent of their roster to summer league together, and a lot of the older guys on the roster still came out to Las Vegas and supported the team and was around the team at the games and whatnot. We've seen now this footage. We know they were with Tom Gores. Tom Gores every offseason has the team out to his mansion for a get together and whatnot. Like, so they've spent a lot of the summer together, and I believe there was some stuff that came out pretty early into the summer that this team had been previously spending some time after the season had ended together, like before summer league, before the draft, etc. So I like that. That means more to me than seeing Jaden Ivey make a step back three, because like on the flip side, I mean, Jaden Ivey also, there was multiple highlights where he got blocked or missed a layup or a couple different plays like that, where so it's like as much as you want to believe in the makes, when you're also seeing the miss, it's like it's a pickup game, and obviously this guy is not perfect. Like, he, just because you only see him make shots in the footage doesn't mean he's bound to have this great year. Like, yeah, Rico Hines, Ball's Life, they're showing the makes because that's the stuff that gets the views, it gets the retweets, it gets the engagement. They're not showing the more minute stuff where you might actually see some sort of like, oh, Isaiah Stewart wasn't making this type of passing read last season or something more minute like that. They're showing the highlight dunks, the 3-pointers, the crossovers, those types of plays. So I like that the Pistons are playing together. I like that they've spent a lot of their offseason together, and that's what I'm taking away from this footage.
Aaron, do you know if Bet Online has odds on Rico Hines runs?
You know what? We need to talk to our guys over there and get them to publish lines, because honestly, just bet Raptors money line every time.
That's right.
They don't lose.
Well, Aaron, there was one guy that was absolutely there that we actually have not brought up at all. And this is kind of the other side of what I was talking about in terms of, are you buying into the good things you're seeing from these players? One player that noticeably had no highlights, and we're talking about makes from the field in this case, was Killian Hayes. And this is something that I know we have discussed a lot coming into his third year in the league. This does really feel like a make or break kind of season for Killian Hayes. And watching that footage, obviously, as you said, it is mostly just highlights. But Killian Hayes did not have any highlights in that Rico Hines footage. He didn't look especially aggressive in what I saw either. So, on the other hand, is this something that you're concerned about? Watching this footage, seeing Killian Hayes not really dominate, not even really leave any sort of an impact. Was that something that sticks in your mind?
I think the funniest reaction that I saw from the footage coming out was the tweet about Killian Hayes just doing cardio out there, like running up and down the court out there. I think that was probably the tweet that I thought was the most sensical from the reaction to the footage.
Well, Aaron, okay, you say that, but Pat Bev has made a whole career off of just running around doing nothing. So you say what you will, but it seems like it's a really good way to make a 10-year NBA career for yourself.
I'm honestly not, like, that's not going to be the thing that changes my opinion on Killian Hayes. This is absolutely an upcoming make or break year for him. The Pistons are not waiting around for him to figure it out any longer. Like, it's kind of now or never for him. And it's disappointing that, in the 30 minutes of footage or whatever it was that was made available, we didn't see Killian Hayes do one thing except like see Trae Young make a 3 over him. So it's disappointing from that sense, but not in the sense of like, oh, this footage confirms to me that Killian Hayes isn't gonna be a better basketball player this year. Like, it's disappointing that he didn't have a highlight that was shown, but I'm also curious how much of the footage actually gets into these videos. Like, how much of the run gets into each of these videos, and I haven't watched enough of them to pick up really on that. So maybe we are seeing like every pickup game that's played that day, but they're maybe we're not. So
I think you only see one court, because you could see in the background there is another court that's being run, because like they're in those Raptors Pistons highlights. You could see Steph in the court behind them, which, by the way, I just want to say, who the hell put these rosters together? Steph Curry, Trae Young, and Michael Porter Jr. on the same. No, sorry, it's one of those Freudian slips. Pardon me. Michael Porter Jr. on the same team. Like, come on, how is that fair? That can't be right.
That was the Pistons were doomed from the start there. Let's be honest. They were doomed from this. I mean, also, like, when I saw the first video come out and it was Corey Joseph, Jaden Ivey, Hamidou Diallo, Marvin Bagley, and Isaiah Stewart, I just knew it wasn't going to go well. Let's be honest.
No, absolutely not.
In that run as well. So I think it was like Siakam, Barnes, Chris Boucher, I think like Malachi Flynn.
He's hard to miss.
Or something like that.
But yeah, man, I'm just saying, like, when the third best scorer on your pickup roster is Mr. Natural Immunization himself, I just think, like, man, Pistons had no chance. So I do agree with you when you say you can't read into it too much. Obviously, there's not, the way that the Pistons are going to be playing. I will ask you one more question, though. Do you read anything into the fact that Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham were on separate rosters in these pickup games? Do you think that was something that was purposeful, or do you think that was just a coincidence?
I'm gonna say it was a coincidence. I think the Pistons sent 4 guards there and like 2 bigs, 2 forwards essentially. So, and I also I only saw one assistant coach there. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was the guy that stepped in for Dwayne Casey when.
Oh, Rex Kalamian?
Yes, Rex Kalamian. I did see him in the footage. Well, I think it was more of a coincidence. Like, the Pistons had to spread out their guards. I think putting Corey Joseph and Killian Hayes together would have been a little odd, considering they're both like true point guards or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not going to read into that. Maybe Rex Kalamian was sent by Dwayne Casey and he was told, like, make sure these guys are on separate teams. I want to see what they do without one another together. I don't know. I'm not going to look into it too much because Isaiah Stewart wasn't with Saddiq Bey and Cade Cunningham. It's like, I'm not anticipating that, Detroit's going to be playing Jalen Duren over Isaiah Stewart at the beginning of the year alongside Cade and Bey in the starting lineup. So not going to look too much into that.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, Aaron, I'm not sure I have much else from that footage. I don't know if you do. Well, I guess I have one question. Hoodie Mello or Hoodie Durant?
I love that. I am pro hooping in a hoodie. I'm pro hooping in a hoodie.
Yeah.
Get the sweat going. It's good for you. And also, like, it's a Nike dry fit hoodie. Like, he's not running up and down in one of those 100-pound cotton hoodies. Like,
I'm just saying, do you think one-on-one Hoodie Jalen Duren could beat Hoodie Carmelo Anthony?
No.
That's the real question.
No one could beat Hoodie Carmelo.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because otherwise I think we'd have to start looking for a new expert on the site, because that I think is like, I mean, that's asking, like, who's the GOAT, Michael Jordan or Isaiah Ryder? You know what I mean? The answer is obvious.
Yeah,
it's Isaiah Ryder.
Nobody comes close. Nobody comes close. All right, there's one more thing that I want to talk about before we wrap this show up. Before we do that, I do want to talk about BetOnline. We mentioned them a little bit earlier, but BetOnline is our sponsor of today's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BLEAV50, BLEAV50 to receive 50% on your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. I don't know why it, like in our read, it goes, and even golf. Like golf is one of the funnest things to bet on. And if you bet on Rory McIlroy last week, you're probably pretty happy you bet on golf. So I don't know if you watch golf. I know we've talked about golf a little bit. Maybe I do that more with Mike.
I was gonna say Mike's more the golfer. It's actually funny. I was talking with my mom very recently, and my grandpa, rest in peace, he was a big time golfer. I mean, this guy golfed every single day of his life, and he passed away when I was just 2 years old. And I was talking to my mom. I said, can you imagine if Nono Bill lived until I was in my mid-teens? I'd be a golfer right now.
You would have been playing the championship.
I would be like golfing all the time. Instead, I think the only pair of clubs I ever owned, I literally got from a dumpster. That's not a joke. I saw them in a dumpster and I was like, you know what? I don't own any golf clubs. I should just take these. So it's crazy to think how just a couple of different things can change your life. We're talking about betting. If Cam Akers had gotten 4 more yards in the Super Bowl, I don't know. I don't think I'd be doing this podcast. I'd be sitting somewhere in the Bahamas sipping, Mai Tais, something like that. But I'm definitely excited for the NFL to come back. I know you're a golf guy, but I am absolutely a football betting guy. I've been very lucky over the last few years. So I'm definitely ready for the NFL season to start. I'm ready for the NBA season to start. The Pistons made me so much money last year when they covered the spread all those games in a row. So I hope they can do it again.
Nebraska spread was supposed to be a lock week 0 of college football, and didn't go that way for me at least. So I'm looking forward to NFL and NBA betting. I've done a hell of a job in MLB this year as well, but we might have to do some Pistons specific betting related content this upcoming year on Palace of Pistons, whether it's the website, the YouTube, maybe we talk about it on the podcast as well. I'm infatuated with it, and I know you are as well. So this could be something that we go behind the scenes on and
absolutely. You know what, Aaron, I'm going to throw out my first betting pick of the NFL season right here, right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you know what? Bills Rams. That's the Thursday night game on the 8th. Over under on that game is 53 points. Take the over. Take the over.
Take the over.
Take the over.
Okay.
Take the over.
Okay.
Take the over.
I'm gonna do it just because you said it.
Yep.
And
thank me later. Neither of those teams, they are gonna score. They're gonna score a lot.
Okay.
I would take the over at 57. That's how crazy.
Wow.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd tease it up to 55, and I'm going to. So yeah,
okay.
Take that over.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, we got one more thing that I want to talk about. SportsIllustrated.com released a new article ranking the best young cores in the NBA late last week. Some of the criteria to fit into their definition of a young core, you had to be 27, under 27 on opening night.
No problem for Detroit.
Well, to be under 27 and have a previous All-Star appearance, or you had to be 25 and younger with All-Star potential, which is, I guess, up to their discretion. And then there was a couple other criteria, 2020, 2021, or 2022 lottery pick. There were a few exceptions to the rules, including Grant Williams and the Pistons' Isaiah Stewart, including them in the young cores as well. The Pistons ranked 12th in the NBA. They were ranked as having the 12th best young core according to this criteria. The top 3 teams were the Grizzlies at 1, the Celtics at 2, and the Pelicans at 3. Interesting to me was that the Cleveland Cavaliers were ranked 6th. The Toronto Raptors were ranked 7th. The Houston Rockets were ranked 8th. And the Orlando Magic were ranked 9th. That's ahead of Atlanta with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, who were ranked 10. Thunder were ranked 11. And then the Kings and Knicks were ranked after the Pistons at 13 and 14, respectively. Number 12. That that was a little low for my point of view.
I think that's fair. If you're including teams like the Grizzlies and Celtics in that young core definition, then I think that's kind of fair. I mean, yeah, you could argue versus the Magic, versus the Thunder. You look at those two teams, it's like, yeah, maybe they have more young talent, but is the upside of any of those players greater than the upside of Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham? I think you could argue probably not. I mean, we'll see what happens with Paolo Banchero, but is, Mo Wagner too. But to me, I look at Detroit having the top two prospects out of those teams. So I guess it kind of depends on where you're looking at what qualifies as the young core. For me, I value top end talent in the NBA, especially more than I value overall talent. It's a star driven league. So I would not necessarily have them in that order, but I can understand why Sports Illustrated would have them ranked that way. Aaron, is there any disagreement from you? I mean, I know you said you think that's a little low, but is it for the same reasons I do, or is it for another reason? Do you think that they have more overall talent than any of those teams ranked ahead of them?
I think I agree from the standpoint of I feel that Detroit has a higher end level talent in Cade Cunningham than a team like Orlando or Houston. And especially in Houston's case, I feel like overall, I would rank Detroit's core above them when you can put Cade, Saddiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Killian Hayes out there and, throw in Isaiah Livers, whatever. I think Marvin Bagley would constitute it as well. Maybe not. Actually, he might not. So fine, don't count Marvin Bagley. But I don't know. I don't think the Pistons are up there with like the top 4, top 5, top 6. I mean, Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Darius Garland is phenomenal. But I think they're somewhere. I think they're better than 12. I don't know how much better. I would rank them ahead of Orlando and Houston pretty comfortably, though.
Okay. I think that's very fair. Even though you are an Alperen Sengun hater, and Erdogan's going to be sending his men after you soon enough for disrespecting a Turkish legend just like that. But okay, I buy your argument. I think I'm kind of in that same mentality as well. I think it's kind of interchangeable. It really does kind of come down to what you value more. Is it overall talent, or is it top end talent? I personally value top end talent more, which is why I would have the Pistons higher. But yeah,
I agree with that 100%. The top end talent is the most important factor to me. And I think Cade Cunningham, as of now, projects to be better than anybody else on Orlando or Houston. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, the writers agreed. I'm sure there's people that have plenty of different opinions. I'm sure some of our listeners feel the Pistons should be ranked as a top 5 young core. So everyone's going to have different opinions on it. And at the end of the day, it's a ranking on a website that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of how the Pistons or any of these other teams go about their operations on a daily basis. So that's really all I had on this topic. I wanted to make sure we talked about it because it's definitely going to be part of our episode title when you're clicking on our podcast. So yeah, I think the Pistons are a couple spots better. I don't think there's anything to get too up in arms about, but that's that.
No, I mean, look, these rankings don't matter. All that matters is at the end of the day, wins and losses. That's all I care about. And look, this is not a team that's going to win a lot this year, but they are going to win in the future, and I have no doubts about that. So even if the core isn't top 5 this year, you know what? If they lose like I think they're going to lose this year and they get another top 5 pick next year, they'll be right up there in the top of those rankings because next year's draft class is absolutely loaded with top end talent. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Detroit to climb up anybody's best young core rankings.
Agreed. And I'm sure we'll be talking about next year's lottery and the talent within it sooner rather than later with this.
Yeah, I think about mid-November we might be starting to talk about that, but yes.
Well, guys, that is going to do it for today's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, brought to you by Believe and Bet Online. Thank everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.